Hello, hello, hello. I see there's a good number of people jumping on here and saying hello already. I'm Rebecca, and I'm talking tonight for Bright City Church for the prophetic stuff, and we're having a continuation of what we started several weeks ago. I'm sorry that last week I had a, in quotations, crisis and my computer died. And so I was busy trying to sort that out. And that was a little crazy, but it's all sorted now. I have a lovely new computer and all is nice and well. But anyway, good evening to all of you. And I hope you have your papers from last time on values. I saw that there is someone new on here tonight. So you might feel a little lost tonight because we're doing something that we started some weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm just looking for the tests. I hope you all have your papers here and that you've scored. You've scored them all, and you've added your scores. First of all, from the first section, and then your scores from the second section. So anyway, the moment of truth has arrived, and what we're looking at is our values and the way we perceive things, and comes out of our values. And God wants us to have a good, healthy perspective. And so in order to understand where our perspectives may be a little bit off or on, whatever, we have to look at them more intensely, like take a flashlight and shine it on the deepest parts of how we believe and why we believe. Anyway, so, and then we're going to score this, and then we're going to evaluate, just have a little bit of a talk about why things look the way they do. So I want to say right off from the very beginning that there is no condemnation. There is no guilt. There's no shame. Like if your score is really lopsided and negative, there's no shame. This is just a thing about growth. It's not about failure or success. It's about an opportunity to grow. And our whole prophetic world will become much better if we all grow in this area. So what we're going to start off with is the scores. So I want you to take your two scores, and I hope you've added them all up individually. Like the first test, you need to add that all up, and that is one score. And then the second test is another score. Okay, have you done that, everybody? What I want you to do now is to subtract your second score from your first score. So let me know. That will take a minute or two. And when you've done that, then I want you someone to start letting me know in the comments that you've done that. And that will be your score. And then we're going to look at it according to this table. I'm going to put this up so you can see it here. Let's see if I can have it there. You can see that. So you need your part 1 score. Put your score in there. And your part 2 score right here. You don't have to tell me. It won't be 68. I doubt it will be 68. You take your whole part 1 score and then your whole part 2 score. It could be 68, I guess. That would put you right in here. Oh my gosh, you guys have a really different score than me. Okay. All right, 68, 61. If that's where everyone is sitting at, sorry, I said that can't be true. It obviously is. This is good. I'm looking to grow more, says Esther. Anyway, okay. Can you see where you are on this scale? On the right-hand side of my screen, it's a positive number. And on the left-hand screen is the negative number. Negative side. Okay. So 144. Yes, Paula, I believe you. Sorry. I just didn't expect it. Rosemary, 63. Okay. All right. So you guys you've got your scores. So you can see where you are on this scale. So most of you who have put your scores up so far, and you don't have to put them up, are in between. Let me get my glasses because I can't even see it that well. Are in between the 50 and the 75. Okay? Right here. Well, you can't. So you're between the 50 and the 75. So I'll just make that a little smaller there. Okay. So what you have here actually is two extremes. This is extreme to the negative, and this is extreme to the positive. Sarah is 118. That's a little bit more higher up on the positive scale. Okay, so already you can sort of see where you are in comparison to other people, although this isn't about comparing. So you've got two extremes. One is negative and one is positive. And you might think that just if you have a positive score, that you're better off than a person who's negative. But that isn't necessarily true, which we'll talk a little bit about. So is everyone okay if I go forward with this now? I think so. Okay, so you've got the two extremes, and we're going to look at the negative side first. And I also want to say that these scores will change during your life. They will change as you grow. So next year you could do this test again, and it would have you'll have a different outcome depending on the things you've gone through in life, the changes you've made, the areas you've worked on, all that kind of stuff. And a particular score won't necessarily mean that you're a better prophet, but it will give you a clue as to how you're doing when you're operating, and what areas maybe you need someone to help you to clean your lenses off. Okay. And that's always good. That's not a negative thing. That is a positive thing. And but the trouble with prophets or prophetic people is we don't always receive help very easily from someone else. We tend to think we know it all, which is too bad because we don't, and we really need others to help us to move forward. But this tool will help you to see that some of the core values that you think you have in your head actually aren't your core values, because it's different what's in your heart. And what's in your heart affects your eyes and the way you see things. And then, of course, it affects how you talk and how you live. So the most the most extreme negative score on this chart is a -200. And that means you would really have problems with the way that you view things. It means that your lenses that you see with are damaged, that they'll have some scratches on or some little dots, somewhere around, like when your glasses are dirty and you can't seem to get, when your glasses are on and they're dirty and you can't seem to get rid of the smudge or the smear, then that's because in this case you have a negative view on life. And these kind of scratches mar your vision and they affect your negativity. And you probably, if this is you, you'll have a hard time believing in people. And as a result, you won't be able to empower them, and you won't know how to develop others. I'm just going to check this. Can I ask everyone's, okay. Esther, we're going to leave that question right now. We're talking about prophetic stuff right now. So maybe later on, I can answer those questions, or someone else can answer them in the chat later. But right now we're going to just talk about the prophetic here. So bless you. Okay. So you have a hard time believing good in people and having trust in people. If your score is negative, especially if it's extremely negative, and you feel just automatically that you can't win battles and that the devil is always out to get you. This is the kind of attitude you have if your score is over on the negative side. And everyone's attitude will be different, but these are some general principles of how this kind of person looks and then operates. You tend to feel, if you're like this, that everyone is against you. The government is against you. People are against you. The church is against you. I know someone who always says, people will always let you down. And that person taught his children that principle. And they say that too. People will always let you down. And so that person has a very scratched lens and a very a bad core, a bad evaluation of himself. There's things there that are wrong that need to be changed, and they affect how he sees people, the government, and the church. And they tend to feel that life is a battle. Everything about life is just a battle. It's all hard. And that we are just pawns in the hands of God. And really, we have no say. We can't control anything. We're just helpless. God just moves us around, and it doesn't make any difference what we think or feel. And these are the things that someone who has an unhealthy view of themselves and life, these are the things that are in their heart. It may not be in their head, but this is what's really inside, governing how they live. So we are just pawns. Everyone is out to control you. Everyone is against who you are and your ministry. Now, I want to say here, we all have days, the odd day when we feel like this, but the trouble happens when these things are deeply seated inside of us. And so I'm talking about long-standing views that are badly affecting your life. And so if you have a negative score, these are some things that you need to be aware of. You tend to be wary of joining up with a church or an organization. You tend to think, well, or you'll hear things coming out of this kind of person's mouth, like, I don't follow men. I don't, I only need Jesus. He is my good shepherd, and I don't need anyone else. And in a way, that's true, but not when it's because you're actually really wounded, and it comes from a place of mistrust. So that's important to know. And people with a really negative, like especially on the extreme end, they tend to be conspiracy theory type people. They're always drawn into just crazy ideas, and they are convinced that all the institutions in the world are infiltrated by evil and the devil and are corrupt and cannot be trusted. You can't trust anything ever. It's all a conspiracy. And people who are broken inside and have scratched lenses, often this is what's behind some of that stuff. And you tend to be attracted to, in the Bible, to the stories of Jesus turning the tables, where he comes in and just smashes things over and says, enough is enough. I'm not having this any longer. And because that's what you want to happen. That's how you feel like inside. You want to do those. You want to turn the tables on everything. And instead of being healed up, you want to get rid of your frustration in that same way. And really, what you need to recognize if your score is extreme and on this negative side is that you need to actually go to someone who's really wise and get some counsel, and someone who has really good discernment. And when you talk, they can help and guide you through whatever process you need to get to the root causes of some of these wrong beliefs, because they are wrong beliefs. And what they're doing is causing distortion in your life. No matter how well-intentioned you are, you stand to look at everything through a distorted view, a distorted lens. Excuse me. And it causes such it causes trouble for you, and it causes trouble for other people as well. And it messes up your core values. So you can see why you want your score, if it's not there already, to go over onto the positive side, right? So back to this, I'll just add it one more time, make it a little bigger. Well, here, let's just, okay. So you want your score to go up onto the positive side. So that's what we're looking for, looking at next, the positive side of this whole thing. Now, in case you think if you are scoring on the negative side, in case you think you're a complete failure, you're not, because even on the positive side, you can get yourself into trouble if you're extreme. Now, extremes are always dangerous. And so even if we're not that healthy, we don't want to be extremely unhealthy. But if you're extreme in the positive side, you run in the danger of seeing God as just some nice little sugar daddy or big sugar daddy, as the case may be, who's there to pour out on you, and he's just going to give you money, and he's just going to give you everything you need, and you're not going to have to do anything, and you're just going to, he's like, put money in the slot machine and he performs for you. You know, you tend to have that view. Well, all I have to do is ask God, you know, and you just speak out of entitlement. And it's actually quite nauseating. And so that is just as bad as having some of the negative kind of things going on. So that's one of the dangers of a positive extremity. And what happens then is you are blinded by this extreme sugar daddy or rose-tinted glasses kind of view. You're prevented from knowing and understanding the side of God, or the side of Jesus Christ, who confronts things and deals with things, and who has laws, or who has guidelines for us to live by, which are conditional, you know, the God of consequence. And if you have just rose-tinted glasses, you don't even want to know that. You don't need to look at that. And you just go around all the time saying, I'm God's favorite. And it's like you're just blissfully unaware of the bubble and the fantasy that you're living in. And that's not healthy either. That's just as unhealthy as the other extreme. So what you need to do is ask yourself some questions. So I'm just going to ask right now, how do you see Jesus? Write that and answer down for yourself. Or if you want, you can write it in the comments here, just so we know. You can need to ask yourself, how do you see Jesus? If you're in the positive side, do you see him just like someone running for office who goes around kissing babies and pardoning people? You know, do you see Jesus like that? Is he that kind of a person to you, who's there to bestow just favor all the time? Or do you have a paradigm for the God who thunders from the heavens? Do you have a paradigm for the Lion of Judah? Do you have a paradigm for the Lord of hosts, who comes on a white horse with the hosts of heaven galloping behind him? Like, or do you just have Jesus, you know, who hands out favors? That's the kind of question you need to ask yourself when you're on the positive side, but at the extreme end of the positive side. Are you too gullible? Sometimes people who are on the positive side are a lot too gullible, and they don't have a well-developed discernment. That's been a problem in my life, not so much now, although it's still, there are a few areas I know that I need to work on my discernment, where I'm still too gullible. And that's hard to admit, but it's necessary to admit, because I can get myself in trouble if I'm not seeing things correctly. So there's an imbalance somewhere in that area for me. So are you too gullible? How do you see Jesus? Are you too gullible? How is your discernment? And if you're having a positive score, then it should mean that you have a healthy relationship with God, and you have a healthy self-love. You must be able to love yourself. And you must have a great outlook on life, like a positive. You must be a person who views life through a glass half full. I think that's how the expression goes, instead of half empty. The empty side is the negative side of this chart, and the glass that's full is on the positive side of this chart. So it can also mean, if you're really positive, if you have the positive thing going on, it can also mean that you are not self-aware and you are actually being dishonest about yourself. And there's that tension is runs through this whole test. Now, these are a little bit difficult to be really honest about. And some of us live in fantasies, thinking we have a much more positive outlook than or a relationship with God, or that we actually do, and a more positive outlook that we actually do. And just know that others are aware of what your reality really is. Now, you might find that this is a bit boring for prophets or prophetic evenings, but this is necessary, because if we are seeing really clearly, then we can speak healthily. But if we have scratches on our lenses and our vision is clouded, the eye gate isn't functional, then we're in trouble. And our eye gate is connected to the heart. So you need now to pray and ask Holy Spirit what your score indicates about you. Lotta says here, let's see. I see Jesus as somebody I can safely rest with, somebody that's willing to tell me the truth, even if I do not want to hear it, but loves me for all I am. That's right. So, and then Paula says, Jesus, my best friend, my husband, my hero, and champion, my beloved, who sees the best and worst in me, yet still loves me. Okay, now both of those answers are interesting, because they both talk about absolute acceptance just as we are, which is about the love of God. And that's true. God's love is absolutely unconditional. And you both talk about a negative thing. So Paula talks about he sees the worst in me, yet still loves me. And then Lotta talks about somebody who's willing to tell me the truth, even when I don't want to hear it, but loves me. So that's good. But both of these answers give room for change, so you can't sit, even though you have a healthy outlook of how Jesus sees you. That's good, because you both then have said he loves you anyway. And what you didn't say was, I can make some changes with this kind of Jesus. Like, I will be okay to change my life, because this is the Jesus that I know who loves me. And that's really important. So anyway, I talked about, and Grace says he's a friend and he's my savior. That's true. So you need to now start, and this is a personal thing that you need to do yourself, because all of you will have different answers, and you need to write them down in your notes so that you can go back over it, because it's important. This is how you'll grow, because we can't talk about it face to face, and we can't lay hands on you and pray for you. But you need to look at your answers. I want you to take time to look at your answers when you're alone, and go through them all and look for themes, because very often you'll see, both on the negative and the positive side, you'll see a theme or two. And then when you see that, you need to ask God, why is that? What does that mean? Why is there a theme? And ask God over each question, why did I answer this question like this? And he'll talk to you and tell you, and then write that down. Rosemary says, Lord and Savior, husband, friend, Lion of Judah, our bulwark, healer, Emmanuel, King, we can trust, but also disciplines me in love. Okay, that's good too. Okay, so ask God the reasons why you have answered the way you have. And then, because he's going to talk to you about this. He is going to take it very seriously. Then you need to ask him, what has happened in your life that has made you to believe the way you do about those things, or to react to those questions in a certain way? And those can be good things, those can be bad things, but ask him. He's not going to keep this information hidden from you, because he wants you free and he wants you to grow. And it's important that you take time to dialogue with him. This is how you grow as a prophet. This is how you develop your character as a prophet. This is how you develop your character as a Christian. It's very, very important. So no matter how bad a situation you found yourself in, you can ask him what lies you believed in the middle of that situation, because he was there. But what lies did you believe or buy into that sealed a negative thought about something in your life that took root? Ask him what the specific lies are, and keep asking until you hear him. You may not want to hear him. Lotta said earlier that even when he said things to her that she didn't want to hear, God is going to tell you in this exercise some things that you don't want to hear. But he loves you. So you don't have to worry about him judging you or beating you up or laughing at you and making you feel stupid, anything like that. He is all about getting you healthy and getting you to grow. So probably there were some real disappointments that you experienced somewhere along the way. Disappointment is always a huge one in people's lives, and shapes the way you and I view life. Sarah says, how can we get the questions again? If you send me your email address in the messages later on, to like in Messenger, on the Invictus Prophetic Network Messenger, or even on the Bright City one, I can send that file out. So disappointments. All of us have areas of disappointment. Every one of us. And very often when there is disappointment, we can find anger, and they seem to go swimming together through our lives. So you need to ask yourself the question, are you angry with God? Are you angry with God? And don't be all religious and say, no, I would never be angry with God, because that's a lie right there. Everybody goes through that. Ask yourself and be honest about it. No one is seeing your answers. No one is entering into your conversation that you're having with God. This is a dialogue between you and him. And it's only for you guys. Are you angry with yourself? Chances are, if you're lashing out at someone else and you're angry with someone else, that underneath all that is that you're angry at yourself, either for putting yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, or for doing something that you think was stupid, or how could I have been so dumb and fallen for that? You know, all of those kind of things. Anger invades so many places in our lives, and we can't afford to have it sitting inside of us at all. We can't. Are you angry with someone else? It can be Joe Blow down the street. It can be your neighbor who doesn't do what you want them to do. You know, it can be anyone. Are you angry with them? And that's a very human emotion. It's not always wrong, but what you do with the anger is what gets us into trouble. And right now we're dealing with anger that has entered and has affected the way you view life and affects your core values. So disappointment, let's go back to that. Did the church let you down? I've been let down by the church many, many times. I've been in the church my entire life. I was, taken as a baby and never let out. And I've been disappointed many times because it's a human organization. and it's filled with people, and I've hurt people many times. So did the church let you down? Don't hide that if that's the truth. Be honest before God about that. Did a leader try to kill your dreams? If you're prophetic, this will happen very often. And it's not intentional. It just happens because sometimes us prophetic types, we come up with some pretty zany ideas. And it's not that the ideas are bad. It's just that we haven't learned communication skills or good leadership, and we don't know how to talk about them properly so that people don't think we're completely nuts. We don't know how to communicate well. And so sometimes people try to kill our dreams. I remember one time I was flying to British Columbia, and I was sitting in it's one of those small aircraft that you take from Vancouver inland. And I sat down beside a lady, and when I get on the plane, I do not want to talk to anyone. I do not think of it as an opportunity to witness for Jesus. And I just put on my headphones and I just want to be left alone. And I remember being so upset with God because I sat down and immediately I had this picture of the woman beside me in the spirit, and the Lord showed me something, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to tell her. And I was so annoyed with God because I didn't want to have a conversation. I just wanted to sit alone and quiet. But anyway, I did tell her. I said, I know you're going to think I'm really crazy, but I've just had this picture of you. May I tell you? And so she said yes. And what I saw, I didn't know who she was or what she did. What I saw was people standing around her, and they were throwing buckets of cold water on her. And I knew that they were doing just this, that she was a woman with incredible ideas and incredible vision, and people were just throwing cold water on all her ideas. And she looked at me and she goes, "Who are you?" Isn't that incredible? But anyway, it was the message that God had for her was like, don't be disappointed by this, and don't let this stop you. Don't let leaders or others throw cold water on your dreams and visions, because they are of God. And anyway, this person turned out to be a member of Parliament. And so this happens at all levels of society. We all get disappointed. We all get cold water thrown on our ideas. And it's very important that if this has happened to you and it's shut you down, that you deal with that before God. Because otherwise, that disappointment, you're going to end up going to another church or another business. And this problem, because you've not dealt with the disappointment and the hurt, is going to follow you. Everywhere you go, that's going to follow you. And it's very simple to deal with. And if you deal with it, it won't cloud your vision or cause you to become cynical and cause you to live the rest of your life on the negative side of the scale. So remember, the whole purpose of this exercise is to search out what's really inside of you with the help of the Holy Spirit so that you can get healthy. Here's another one. Do you come from a dysfunctional home? Most of us come from dysfunction. Like, there's no shame in that. It is how it is, because we're all broken. It used to be when you would hear someone say, oh, they come from a dysfunctional home. And, you'd say, oh, poor people. Well, come on. Most of us have come with this. What's the best way to deal with disappointment? Well, first of all, you have to learn about the power of forgiveness. But you need to go and get that disappointment prayed over. Because probably it's taken root somewhere, and you don't want bitter roots in your life. So you actually need to confess this, I believe, to someone who will pray with you specifically about this, and they'll lead you through prayers of forgiveness for those who have hurt you and wounded you or let you down. And then you ask the Lord to come into that place and to fill it with his presence. And for me, that isn't enough. I actually have to go a step further. I have to ask the Lord to give me ways to serve those people that I feel who have let me down. And that then opens the gate for love to begin to flow. And then that takes care of disappointment. And it reminds you that you also disappoint people, you know, and where you giving grace, you're going to get grace. So that's how I deal with that. That's pretty simplistic, but yeah. So dysfunction, abuse, that's a big one. And that needs specialist care. Neglect, but these are things that will affect your view of the world. People who are full of rejection and abandonment, you know, if they don't deal with it properly, if you just try and say, oh, that's in the past, you'll never get it dealt with properly, because you can know in your head that those things, you know, happened because of whatever. You can explain it away, but your heart is not your head. And so that's where the problem is. It's between your heart and your head. There's a disconnect, and that has to be fixed in order for health to come to your core values. And that's really, really, really important that you don't just go, oh, that was then, and I don't need that, you know. And we all need healing. We're all broken in some areas. That is the human condition, and that's why we need God so much. Anyway, yeah, okay, I talked about the head and the heart. Proverbs, where the verse I had for that business of the disconnect is, you can look it up, is in Proverbs 4:23, because it talks about out of the heart flow the issues of life. It's not out of the head, it's not out of knowledge, it's out of the heart. And so this test was designed as a mirror of your heart, what's really there, so that you can work on the disconnects, so that your prophetic words will change. Once the connections are made right, they'll change, and it will affect your whole life. So Ephesians 3, verse 17 to 19 says this, and I'm going to read it. It says that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth. And here's the kicker, to know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled up to all the fullness of God. Okay, how often do you think about that? To know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge. Knowledge is something that happens in your head. Knowing, which is a word which describes the most intimate kind of thing that you could ever have, almost like sexual union, like it's that kind of intimacy, that kind of knowing. To know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge. That's what this is all about, that you may then be filled up with all the fullness of God. And so you can see from that scripture that it's something more than the head that needs to happen. Paula, yes, Proverbs 4:23. That's such an important, just to memorize that phrase as you do this test, to know the love of God, which surpasses knowledge. Now, in the British Isles, knowledge is revered more than knowing in the Roman tradition. In the Celtic tradition, it's more about knowing. And what you need is those things to marry. They've been separated. And you need them to come together for this to really function well. Because we all need knowledge, we all need insight, and we need to understand the things of God with our head, but we have to experience them much more than many of us find easy. And that's what will help us. So knowing, intimate knowing, surpasses knowledge. And you have to experience things, not just have knowledge about them in order to be healthy. And great core values come when you've been exposed to the truth at the deepest, deepest part, because truth reveals the lies that you're believing and the lies that you're operating out of. And we all have them. Every day we have to ask God, to cause us to walk in the truth in every area of our lives. We go back again and again and again to Psalm 51 and to pray that prayer about let there be truth in the inward parts. So I grew up as a child in the church, like I said, being told truth and memorizing truth. And I knew all the rules of how a good Christian should be, but this isn't enough. And I did experience the things of God, but the tradition I was brought up in was much more head knowledge than experiential, sorry. And I learned as I've grown that I have to live the truth, and that only comes from experiencing the truth. Otherwise, I'm just a walking religious machine, quoting off scriptures and always having a religious answer for everything, and no life at all, no bubbling up of the life of God, which happens without you having to be religious. It happens from experiencing him and having him know you and having me know him back. That kind of knowing that surpasses knowledge. That's what changes everything, everything, everything. So intellectual agreement with God will only get you so far. And it won't get you very far, actually. It will just sort of sit you at the table with the intellectuals. And you and I need to agree with what the Bible says, that we need the Spirit and we need the Word. Then we can have what we need to change us, and it will change our values. Let's see. Love must be experienced. Just knowledge. Yeah, that's how that works. Anyway, so when these changes happen, when we open up, then we can have our core values adjusted to God's values. And God's values aren't what we sometimes think are his values. Especially if we've grown up in a religious setting with all sorts of rules and regulations, we find out that God actually didn't say half of the things we think he said. And he didn't quote scriptures every 2 minutes in the wrong place, or when people don't need to hear a scripture, when all they need is to be loved or laughed at or laughed with or cried with, whatever the case may be. But anyway, when our values are shifted and made healthy, we speak then from that new place, and that's fantastic. Otherwise, all the negative stuff that we believe, all our conspiracy theories and all these ideas we have, our negative perceptions and that, or even our good things, even the, stuff through the rosy tinted glasses, that will all come bubbling out of our mouths, and we release it, whether we realize it or not, because we're carrying that inside. It's all about what's inside of us. And it affects our judgment of situations, even your assessment of what's going on in the pandemic world. That all comes out from your core values that are inside of you. Being negative and reactionary, and this way you have a pretty good idea of what their core values are and how they feel about what the world thinks of them. And if you hear people being all positive, that, and hope-filled, and this could happen and this could happen, and you have a pretty good idea of what they believe about God in that situation, so it all comes out of our language. It all comes out on how we choose to live our lives, even in the lockdown situation. Everything is revealed because that's what we carry in our hearts. So you can't hide it, or you can hide it for so long, but then it's going to come out. And it affects our judgment. It affects how we see things and how we live and how we speak. So it's a real test of those scriptures that say life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so those things come from the truth that we live in and what we have experienced and what we know with our hearts. So our core values as prophets actually need to be so healthy that they become part of our identity, or they become our identity, actually, because they become what we live. And that's very important, that our core values determine how we live and how we behave in each and every situation. So, are there any questions that anyone has about what we've done, because that's basically an explanation of what the test was and what it was about and how you can use it going forward to sit down and have a further conversation with God about why you answered the things the way you did answer them and what you can do about them. Any questions? I'll just wait for a few minutes here to see if anyone has anything to say in the comments. Let's see. I think it's gone quiet. Someone says they're always angry with God. Well, that can be fixed. Yeah, I think, oh, there's a new comment. Let's have a look. Rosemary says, she says, yes, we need to guard our tongues at all times. I pray each day and ask God to keep a watch on my lips. And Bright City says, out of the overflow of the heart we speak. It's true. It's true. And the heart is a seat of our values. It's actually the throne of God in our lives. And so we want to keep that area clean and we want to keep it pure. Let's see, there's another comment. How do we know if we're too gullible? Well, you know because you mess up or you believe someone and you think, this has happened to me several times. There's one particular area where I find it difficult. I'll just talk about it because it helps. I tend sometimes to misjudge the how much currency there is or how well developed a relationship is or a friendship is that I have. And then all of a sudden I'll say something within the context of that friendship. And then I'll realize, oh, I didn't have the currency in that relationship. There wasn't enough saved up for me to be able to say that in that context. And then I realized I was too gullible and I misread the level of friendship that I actually had. And that happens to me, every once in a while. Now, you might not think that's bad. And probably what it shows is that I'm very trusting of people. But you end up in a pickle if you don't discern this. So I'm always asking the Lord, please help me with that gullibility. I want to be wise in every area of my life. Does that help, Karen? I just used a personal example because sometimes that's helpful. Paula says, how can anger with God be fixed? And how can we help those struggling with it? Well, I think that the first thing we can do is fix our own anger with God. And the way I do that is I just say to him, I am really mad at you. I talk to him about it. And I tell him, I feel you have let me down. And all the time I know that isn't true, but that's how I feel. It's an emotion, anger. And I talk to him about it. And then I rant and rave because that's what I do. And I don't have any kind of religious filter that tells me I can't do that. And if I'm cross with him, I'm just going to tell him because you know what? He is my friend. He loves me. He listens to me. He knows anyway. So why should I fake it? And then we duke it out, and he tells me what his word says and what he says about a situation. And I tell him sometimes, well, I don't think that's fair. And then he'll tell me life isn't fair. And on it will go until we resolve the issue. And I just feel like it's important to be honest, very important to be honest about that. Okay, let's see. Is that okay, Paula? What about when the other person does not see you with a clear eye? You can't do anything about that. People will always see you through lenses that are broken, but you can't really fix how people are going to see you. You can just fix how you see them. And, I know when people see me. I know when they don't see me. I know when they're misjudging me. I'm very aware. I can choose to react to them, or I can choose just to not say a thing and just keep going. That's just part of life. And if you are prophetically gifted and tend to operate in that way, there will always be people who will see you through scratched lenses because of what for a number of reasons, and yeah, you really can't do anything about it. Just love them and pretend it isn't there, and they'll either get to know you and change their sight will change. They'll clean their glasses, but you need to become comfortable with just being who you are, even when people see you through a damaged lens. And that's sometimes very hard, especially if they're cruel people who want to assassinate your character. That's another story, and there are ways to deal with that and right ways to deal with that. But that isn't the norm that would be happening. At least I hope not. Anyway, this has been helpful. Would also notes, don't know what happened, but I lost the sound. Well, we'll see if we can do that. You can write to me. Okay. How do you move from a glass half empty person to a glass half full? Well, that's the process that we explained tonight. If you have found yourself on the negative side, then you are a person who sees with a glass half empty. Even if you think you're a glass half full person, the test shows that you're not. And so you move by getting some healing and realizing that the way you're seeing life is robbing you from, and it's changing your attitudes towards people. You even drive people away from you. If you're a person who's always moaning and always negative, and there's always something wrong, and moan, people are not going to want to hang out with you. And that should be motivation for you to work on these inner things. Change is work. It doesn't just happen with a quick run to the altar and a quick prayer said over you. No. Occasionally, God will instantly set you free from something. Occasionally. But more often than not, he wants to partner with you and work things through. Because if he works things through, you've invested in that, and you won't lose it, and you won't want that negative stuff ever to come back again. And so that's how you move. That's how you change. I can remember being in depression, and I remember the first time I ever started laughing again. And I never, from that moment on, wanted to go back into depression. And so I knew there was work to be done. And so it's all about choice, personal choice, that you need to make continually, every day. Even now, I get up and I'm remember who you are, Rebecca. Don't just think, okay, I have to stay at home all day, and so I'm not going to bother to take care of myself, or I'm not going to bother to interact with people. I'm just going to be grumpy and, the government and blah, blah, blah. Every day I choose against that. Every day I choose against, I don't know how long it's going to be before I see my family. What about Christmas? All the negative. Every day I must make a choice. And I do. And in that, things shift for me, and my glass just begins to fill up and fill up and fill up. And then I see all the positive things. I have a friend on Facebook right now, and every day she's posting things that she is thankful for. And she is choosing against strong feelings of disappointment and difficulty. She is choosing to change how she is on this scale. And it's working for her, and it's working for everyone around her too, because everyone's reading that, and she just puts what she's thankful for, and it immediately challenges you to change from the negative to the positive. And if you keep doing that, God will work it into your life. So yes, making continual choices. Great. Rosemary says, earlier when I said I was disappointed, it was with myself and my family and not with God or man. Okay. Well, many people are mad with God. It's quite common. And many people are mad with men. That sounds funny. Um, but, if you're disappointed with yourself, you have to forgive yourself and lighten up. And because you will make mistakes, and you don't want to spend any time living in regret, and you don't want to spend any time living in shame or anything like that. And so you just have to choose to walk away from that stuff, because Jesus died for that. He bled and died on the cross to take your shame, to take the things that you fell apart in and made mistakes or sinned or whatever all. But that wasn't all. He then rose. He resurrected from the dead on the third day. And in that resurrection, he gives you hope for the future. And so it's important that you think of his death and remember his death, but you also celebrate his resurrection. And so any disappointment can be brought through the cross and through the grave and resurrected to new life. That's how it works. Okay. So we will stop now. We've been on here an hour. I hope that this has been helpful for you in your process of values. I know we've spent 3 weeks on it, but for me, it's a very important topic, and it's where all the change takes place, actually, and it changes our lives, and it changes our lives as prophesiers, how we prophesy to other people, and it changes how we prophesy over ourselves, and how how it prepares us to speak well for the kingdom of God. So thank you for joining, and God bless you all, every one of you. Bye-bye.